The idea that we think of a third world nation is a nation where justice doesn't exist. And ultimately, that's what defines a nation. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you in there. Shout out to all of you. Shout out to our Patreons. And I want to talk about something important on today's Justice Show. And I want to highlight a situation that goes to the issue of our borders and our language and our culture, but goes so much beyond that because it validates that the USA truly is a third world nation. And it's time for the world, for the larger side of America, for all who care about justice, to recognize the USA as the third world nation it is. I want to show you because I was looking at some news stories and I am so angry right now. And I just can't fathom the level of depravity and hypocrisy that my country is come to. And I want to warn people from all places on the earth. I know that everywhere you go, there's problems, but I want to warn everyone not to go to the USA. This is truly a terrorist nation. Thank you all. I was reading this article on Vice, and it said Honduran man killed himself after Border Patrol separated him from his family. Now, I knew where this was going, but I started reading in this article, all right? And it's this Honduran man. Now Honduras is in a bit of a rough way right now. And so people are coming through Mexico, and they believe the propaganda, and they believe all of the things that we put out in our media saying that it's really a great place. So they cross the border seeking refugee status, right? Because they're refugees. Number one, the Border Patrol is a completely unconstitutional organization. They have no right to stop or inspect anyone. They have no right to exist. If a monitoring of our border is to exist, it's a state level thing. But second of all, no one has a right, not you, not anyone else, to stop anyone who's not suspected under due process of committing a crime. And so I'm going down this, and this Antonio Muñoz, who's a 39-year-old man, he crossed into Texas, one of the most psychopathic police states of all the police states in the U.S., and his family was taken into custody, all right? So immediately, this man comes seeking refuge and help, and immediately U.S. officials that the Patriot movement calls heroes immediately kidnap him, all right? And I'm going to read a couple quotes. The Border Patrol agents separated him from his family. So not only are they arresting people, they're separating the husband from the wife, from the children, and then proceeding to traffic the children for profit. And so people have the gall to stand beside police and shake hands with police and veterans and go and dig up homeless camps in Arizona or whatever it is they're finding and say, look, human trafficking, child trafficking, and yet they refuse to lift a finger to resist the actual number one terrorists and human traffickers in the USA, Blue ISIS and their cronies. But this gets worse, you guys. Muñoz was placed in a chain-link detention cell, okay? The border agent said he lost it. The guy lost his shit, the agent told the paper. They had to use physical force to take the child out of his hands. Gee, I wonder why, you psychopathic terrorists. He was placed in a chain-link detention cell, but was violently punching and shaking the cage. That's called trying to escape a human trafficker. Border Patrol moved him to Starr County Jail in Rio Grande City, 40 miles away. He attempted to escape from his kidnappers multiple times, but to no avail. Guards told the Post that they checked on him every 30 minutes, and he was in a padded cell with a camera. The next morning, however, on May 13th, slightly before 10 a.m., he was found on the floor in his cell in a pool of blood. He had clothing twisted around his neck. The incident was recorded as a suicide in custody. Is anyone catch the obvious huge gap If you hang yourself in your cell, you're not lying in a pool of blood. So number one, all the evidence that is coming out of their mouths suggests murder, not suicide. So not only do we have multiple kidnappings, human trafficking, and suspected murder, okay? They literally, this makes me so angry because these people are traversing the continent because they believe the rubbish that we continue to perpetrate out of our country, saying we're great and we're free and we're just, and they show up at our border and are immediately violated, kidnapped, extorted, physically abused, mentally abused, and murdered. But it gets worse if that's possible. Because they're not just arresting people for illegal immigration. And there's no such thing under our Constitution, our laws, or our founding fathers as illegal immigration. "Where's my mom?" cries girl as immigrant kids are separated from parents. Now, I want you guys to really understand what's happening. These are families coming to try and find a better life. Separated from her parents at the southern border, a 9-year-old girl from Guatemala who recently arrived in Michigan often cries out in Spanish, "Where's my mom?" This is a completely separate incident, by the way. These people are showing up at our border, asking for help. And the so-called law of the land is tearing their children from their arms, trafficking them to foster homes and who knows elsewhere. We'll come back to that in a moment, where they can control them, putting their parents into for-profit concentration camps, and continuing to perpetrate their terrorism in the name of freedom. I can't even fathom the level of evil of those who support this. And I'm just waiting for God to bring his wrath down on this system. Let's go on, though, because we're talking about this article that's talking about how families are being ripped apart in the name of illegal immigration, and they're separating their families. Of course, the for-profit prison system loves to separate the family. That's the one thing. See, in Latin America, they have much stronger families, which is why people are more united. And in the United States, we live as slaves because the family has been destroyed. And it's important to understand this. The justice system, from the divorce system to the child care system to the school system to the taking people's kids away, putting their fathers in prison, the entire system is designed from kindergarten up to destroy and separate the family. Because if you destroy and separate the family through division, through hate, through prison, you control them. They're slaves. If there's no unity in your unit as a group, which starts with the family, then the government can do whatever they want. Let's see what our lovely Trump administration Attorney General trader Jeff Sessions. If people don't want to be separated from their children, they should not bring them with them. We have to get this message out. You're not given immunity. You will be prosecuted if you come illegally. And if you bring your children, you'll still be prosecuted. If you bring your children, you'll still be prosecuted. If you support this, you guys, if you think this is patriotism, if anyone's watching this and you think Trump or Sessions or the Border Patrol or any of this is okay, please leave now. You're a psychopath. You are mentally ill if you think that this kind of human behavior, you're not better than the brown people. You're not better than anyone. Everyone's rights are exactly the same. And we're not a nation founded on, let's deport the people that don't have special magic papers. We're a nation founded on the idea that, read my lips, all men are created equal. And the Patriot movement is promoting treason and terrorism and abuse. It does actually get worse, though. Now, first they're arresting people, then they're stealing their children and trafficking them into homes. Now get this, the U.S. lost track of 1,475 immigrant children last year. If you have the gall to back the blue and say you need to come together and help us stop the bad child traffickers, you're not thinking clearly. The child traffickers are these costume-wearing psychopaths that traffic human beings and all the people who support them. There's no such thing as you having more rights because you have special papers. So we have a pipeline of chaos and terrorism. We have immigrants coming here with their families to seek hope, being immediately accosted, kidnapped, their families torn, crying from their arms, and trafficked into the for-profit system while the parents are locked away in prisons, having committed no crime whatsoever. Then those trafficked children are placed heaven knows where. In fact, heaven really only does know where, because the psychopaths who are kidnapping and trafficking them cannot even keep track of who they were sold to. I am outraged. I am outraged at the criminals who perpetrate this. I'm outraged at the criminals who support the Border Patrol and the police. I'm outraged about any of you criminals who say that the right to travel can be a crime, because you are complicit in terrorism. You're anti-American, you're anti-freedom, you're anti-Christ, and you're anti-justice. And I won't allow people to pretend that they're patriots, that promote this disgusting terrorism, this human trafficking, this murderous insanity, as law, as freedom, as security. These people don't support a secure border. They support global terrorism on our own people and the rest of the world. And if you support people being arrested and accosted at the border when they have every right to travel, to cross the border, to live and to work, if you support this, you're a criminal. And I am not afraid to say it. And it's time for people to stop treating you as a patriot. It's time for people to stop listening to your verbiage and pretending that it's relevant argument, because you are a human trafficking, anti-American thug. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. The Constitution is clear. The Founding Fathers were clear. But most importantly, the human rights of mankind, natural law is clear. You don't get to restrict anyone's travel. And I want to give a message to the world. And anyone who's considering traveling, thanks Trail, to the USA, especially those seeking hope, do not go to the USA. The USA is a third world terrorist nation that is being usurped by people who hate our Constitution. Thanks, ethics. Who hate justice and who hate the rule of law. You have a right to use any and all necessary means to resist these terrorists who want to steal your babies from your arms and traffic you into for-profit prisons and institutions. You have a right to resist these terrorists, regardless of the costume that they wear, with all necessary means. But I warn you, they are an armed, psychopathic military force of third world justice. And so they will murder you. They will imprison you, and they do have more force. So I encourage everyone who's seeking refuge, who's seeking to escape a situation of problems, the USA should be last on your list, because it's not a place of hope. It's not a place of freedom, and it is going down. And I plead with God, and you guys may not believe in God like I do, but I'm pleading with God to bring judgment on these people sooner rather than later. I am sick of watching them murder and kill and molest and extort and abuse. But in the meantime, you have a right to defend your family. But the USA and its Patriot Foundation will very likely kill you for trying. I just want to stop and have a moment of silence for the immigrants, the civilians, the prisoners, and all the people suffering, murdered, abused, fatherless, and widowed because of the Border Patrol, Blue ISIS, the judges, and all the Patriot movement that backs them in the name of freedom. All right, you guys, I just had to get that out there. Wanted to show you guys what's really happening, where the real child trafficking and human trafficking is going on. If you're looking for refuge, look anywhere but the USA. And I can say that in Mexico, its constitution is far better about protecting the immigrant, and it's completely unacceptable here for children to be taken from their families and separated like that. That's not something that is tolerable under the law, the Constitution, which is still relevant here. And I would say this is probably true in most other sane countries as well. However, keep resisting. Keep resisting. Jesus isn't Santa Claus. Whatever you believe, wherever you stand on those matters, you have to stand up, you have to speak out, you still have to start speaking against these terrorists and these criminals. You have to start resisting Blue ISIS. All right, you guys, spread this. Show people, tell people, repeat it, share these stories. I'll put some links in the show notes down below, and thank you all for tuning in to today's Justice Show.